everyone, I'm Dana. Welcome back to Tuesday Tips for Leaders of Volunteers, and today we're talking about reading the room and setting the crowd. So these are tips for doing a learning event or speaking engagement, whether you are live with a live audience, live studio audience, or if you're doing something over Zoom or some other broadcast medium. Some of these same tips apply to kind of get people ready to listen and participate in whatever you're doing. So setting the crowd comes from kind of a street theater background or a vaudeville or kind of circus background. And what that means is you're getting the crowd, actually a group of people, set to listen to you attentively. Now, if you're working in person, then that means that you want to have a certain amount of space where the audience isn't too far away and people aren't too scattered. So I used to teach this to docents and other kinds of educational guides who would work in outdoor settings or in zoos or museums or aquariums, where they would have, school kids in different ages with different varying attention spans. So part of setting a crowd is sometimes physically, what does the space look like? Are you at a conference where you're on a very high stage or blocked by a podium or blocked behind a table and the audience is far away from you? That's going to create a disengagement. That's going to create kind of an enthusiasm gap or an attention gap. So as much as possible in safe COVID times, if you're speaking in person, indoors or outdoors, we want to make sure that people are kind of evenly spaced and close enough to you to be able to hear comfortably, whether you are mic'd or not mic'd. And over a Zoom setting, setting the crowd means kind of setting people's expectations of how will they be able to interact with you. Can they only see and hear you, and can you not see and hear them, for instance? Will they be able to communicate in chat, or will they have none of that? So ideally, even over a digital medium or working remotely or virtually, you and the audience can have a chance to have some sort of interaction throughout the presentation and not only something at the very, very end of a little bit of a Q&A. So really design your speaking, your learning events to include people all along in the process. And if that's digital, that can be poll questions along the way or questions that you ask in chat with someone helping to moderate that, really just to keep that engagement up. Now, when we're going back to in-person speaking and learning together, setting the crowd and reading the room is a really important skill. And something to consider is someone being either too inattentive or bordering on disruptive or almost heckling. And there's ways to deal with that, where especially if you're working with a lot of ages of people and kids and families, is if someone is very, very enthusiastic and they're asking a lot of questions and maybe they're pulling time away from other people, or it seems like they're intimidating other people from asking questions, you actually kind of want to bring a disruptive person closer into the conversation and almost kind of make them an assistant or deputize them in a sense to kind of share focus. So rather than having a very enthusiastic or borderline disruptive person pulling focus in a room, in a conference room, or in a live setting, or even in a Zoom environment, try to engage them and actually pull them tighter into the conversation so that you're sharing focus rather than having them pull it away from the main thing that you're doing. And they may have some good points. Maybe they aren't, maybe they're just seeking attention, and dealing with a heckler is kind of another thing, so hopefully you won't have to do that too much. When you're doing something online, you actually want to do things in shorter segments. So if you're speaking in person, you can probably do an hour and a half or 2 or 3 hour workshop and take breaks and be physically active and have people move around a little bit, such as they are able. But you want to do things in smaller chunks for an online audience, again, just because we're in such an easily distracted world. Trying to pay attention to just focus on one thing on a screen when we're already zoomed out can be more difficult. So setting the crowd, setting expectations, understanding as a presenter what your level of interaction is going to be with the audience and how you can keep them involved throughout the entire presentation is part of today's Tuesday Tips. So I hope you enjoy that little piece of wisdom from street theater, and we'll see you next time.